Students should not have to pay for general education and elective classes in college. Most universities require 120 course credits to graduate, with about 30 to 36 of those going to your major. According to bestcolleges.com, general education requirements take up about half of the coursework in college, or 60 credit hours, with the rest going to elective classes. Universities should make general education classes optional, but if they must make them a requirement, they should provide them free of charge. I agree that these classes are important, but they're not absolutely necessary for everyone to take, and here's why. A lot of these classes are courses that people already took and passed in high school. Also, college students are legally adults, and therefore I think that they should be held responsible for their prior knowledge to entering a major course in college. At the very least, elective courses should not be required in college, and we most certainly should not have to pay for them. These courses have absolutely nothing to do with our majors, and I know most students elect to compile those classes into a minor, which is great and all, but still it shouldn't be required to graduate. College tuition is way overpriced. The cost of tuition keeps rising because banks willingly hand out student loans left and right to almost anyone that asks for them. The national student loan debt is at an all-time high, and it continues to speed up. In my opinion, there are two great ways to cut the cost of tuition. We can either stop requiring so many gen eds and electives, or colleges can keep the required 120 credits, but pay for everything except your major classes. In my opinion, electives and gen eds are just a convenient way for universities to keep making money. I'm graduating this May from the University of Memphis. I have currently paid for 121 credit hours in college. Most of these credits have absolutely nothing to do with my major. Required courses for your major only take up 30% of all of the coursework you do in college. According to memphis.edu, the average tuition for 15 course credits, which is basically a full slate of tuition or a full slate of work, is just a little bit over $5,000. That's $10,000 annually for students that live in state. Imagine if you cut that number from $10,000 to $3,000 for every student. Imagine how much lower student debt would be across the United States. The U of M's tuition is comparable to a lot of public state universities throughout the United States. According to educationdata.org, the average annual cost for in-state tuition is $10,000 for in-state and around $27,000 for out-of-state. You might be thinking, well, how would the colleges continue to pay teachers and faculty and staff if they cut the cost of tuition so much? Well, one, I'd be willing to bet that if students weren't required to take gen eds and electives, there would be significantly less participation in these courses, which would mean they would have less workers all around, meaning less teachers, less faculty, less students on campus taking some of these courses, which would lead to a smaller payroll all around. Two, according to nces.gov, public colleges make 41% of their revenue from government grants, contracts, and appropriations. Colleges make plenty of money. Don't worry about their payroll. So, like I said, college tuition is grossly overpriced these days. And the biggest contributor to these prices is the fact that student loans are so willingly handed out by banks. And colleges know that, and they sort of like to take advantage of this. According to credible.com, the average student loan debt per college graduate in the US is around $40,000, with a staggering $1.75 trillion in total student loan debt. There are over 43 million student loan borrowers in the US right now. This is a real problem. Students shouldn't have to borrow so much money to attend university. And to add insult to injury, 70% of the classes you take have absolutely or little to do with the major you are pursuing. I think there are a couple solutions to this problem. And I'm not saying that every class you take in college has to be directly related to your major or a major course requirement. I think it would be in the best interest for students if the required credits to graduate drop from 120 to 60. This would cut time in college in half and block out a lot of those classes that have nothing to do with what you're pursuing. And here's how it would work. Students would take your typical 30 to 40 credit hours for your major. And then we could add on another 20 to 30 credit hours for gen ed classes or classes that aren't available in high school. For example, if a communication student wanted to come into college, they could take a couple English gen ed classes that kind of correlate into their major, instead of taking all these maths and sciences, which they're probably not going to do for the rest of their life. And they already took a lot of general math and science classes in K through 12. Not only would this save students a substantial amount of money, but it would cut the time they spend at school in half. So another solution to this would be they could keep the 120 required course credit hours, but colleges could pay for gen eds and electives. I think that the colleges can afford to pay their teachers this based on the statistics that I provided you today. And I think it's honestly a great way for students to keep expanding their knowledge without having to go in so much debt. So to sum it all up, I don't think that colleges should require gen eds or electives to graduate college. I think if they do require them, they should pay for them. And as you know by the statistics that I provided you, colleges will still make plenty of money without nickel and diming every student for every little class and fee. Thank you so much for listening.